So as I've just alluded to, making sure you have a good vocabulary, making sure you are au fait with the language in which you communicate is a great benefit to getting your point across. Then, as I said right at the start, listen. Listen to what the other person has to say. Don't start formulating a response before the person is finished speaking, because you don't know what other information is going to be shared with you. Once that person is finished speaking and you have listened, then you can start paraphrasing and say, did you say we need to increase the capacity of that department by 60% or 65%? That way you get clarity. But listen actively. And then once the person is finished speaking, you can ask your questions and paraphrase. Be open to the other person's perspective. There's never just one solution to a situation. And sometimes our egos get in the way. And I want to be right and I want you to be wrong. And that is the premise from which we communicate is, I don't care where this goes, but I'm right and I'm sticking to my guns. And that is very poor communication. Be open, ask questions, be curious about what the other person is saying, how they arrived there, what is their perspective. And you may just learn something. You may just increase your knowledge about something. So be open to another person's opinion and perspective. Another point is make sure of the facts. If you are going to take someone on about something, make sure you are in possession of all the facts. Not hearsay, not rumor, not assumption, not I'm sure this is the case, which is a way of saying I'm really not sure. But make sure you do your own research, you are in possession of all the facts, and that you can speak to your audience, whether it's one person or more than one, as an informed speaker, and not someone who's picked up bits and pieces here and there and now wants to sound like he or she is knowing what they are talking about. And then, of course, there are the 7 C's of good communication, which I have some of them I've touched on, but let's just go through them again, because it also makes life a lot simpler when you can just make yourself au fait with this. Clear, when you are writing or speaking to someone, and remember, communication is writing, it's speaking, it's body language, it's facial expressions. So let me just jump in there and say, so when I'm speaking to someone, I need to ensure that my facial expressions, my eyes, my body language is saying the same thing as the words that are coming out of my mouth. We've all had the occasion where either ourselves or someone else have tried to tell you how happy they are, when it is very obvious they're not really all that happy. There's a disconnect. So make sure that all those things are speaking the same language. So when writing or speaking to someone, be clear about the goal of the message. Are you entertaining? Are you educating? Are you informing? Make sure that you know what the purpose is of your communication. Second, be concise. When you are concise in your communication, you stick to the point and you keep it brief. You don't lose the audience with a lot of unnecessary sentences, a lot of unnecessary filter words. You know, the kind of like I said, and he was like, and she was like. It's a word I hear a lot in people's communication, the like. Become aware of how you use the language and what filter words or filter noises. We all do it to a certain, to a greater or lesser degree. I'm aware of myself doing it at times, and there it was. And try and control that. But be aware of unnecessary words or sounds that you put in your communication. Make it concrete. Your audience has a clear picture of what you're telling them when you make it concrete. Enough details, not too many, not too few. Your communication fits the audience needs. Remember what I chatted about, the audience needs. Do not rely on their interpretation, because there can be the miscommunication. Be coherent. There must be a logical sequence to what you are putting across. We often have it, I know it, I had it with my late mom. As she was getting older, she would talk about something and in mid-sentence change topic. And for a moment, you are a little bit lost as to what mom is talking about, because she has just changed topic and changed pace completely. So make sure your communications are coherent, logical. People can follow your argument, in other words. Your communication must be complete. Has your audience got all the necessary information to action, whatever it is you are communicating? So if I say to someone, please phone Mr. Smith and arrange for the car to be serviced. Mr. Smith, where? Which company? Is it your service provider? Is it the agent of the manufacturer? Which Mr. Smith? And even if he has that information, there may be more than one Mr. Smith at that company. But if I say, please phone Mr. Smith in, let's say, accounts, and ask him to check the outstanding balance on our account, that is a lot more complete than just saying, phone Smith and ask him about the account. Be courteous. Always make sure your communication is friendly, open, and honest. Folks, there must be no hidden insults or passive-aggressive tones, or your audience has to read between the lines, hidden threats, those veiled threats about what the consequences could be if they don't action or acquiesce to whatever it is you're communicating. And of course, in our beautiful country, we have many different cultures, and it is a good idea that we all familiarize ourselves with the customs of the various cultures. So if your audience is from a different culture than yourself, you have a pretty good idea of what is acceptable forms of communication to them and what is not, what would perhaps be considered disrespectful and what would not be considered disrespectful, or what would be open and honest and courteous. So in a nutshell, David, know your audience, because that is important to know what they are capable of understanding. And as I say, don't talk over their heads and don't talk below them, because they can find that insulting. Be clear about what you want to get across. What is the goal of your communication? Emotions, we've spoken about that often. Once your emotions get out of control, once you allow yourself to kind of lose your temper or get very frustrated, then tones and language may creep into your communication that is not going to be courteous and sit well with your listener or listeners. Be open to someone else's perspective. Don't let your ego say to you, this is a win-lose situation. I win, you lose, or you win and then I lose. There can always be give and take. And perhaps, listeners, if you're interested, we can chat about negotiation skills, because if we are open to that give and take, about being curious about another person's point of view, about learning something about that person, and being clear about what I'm prepared to negotiate about and what not, that also aids a communication tremendously. Whether it is, what do you want for supper? I want fish and you want chicken, and how we're going to box this so that we are both happy. And it's not I win because I get what I want and you don't. So let us know if you'd be interested in that. And as I say, always make sure about your facts. You know what they say, assumption is the mother of all bugger-ups. And we often go off on assumptions. We think we know what happened. We think we know what was said. And it is often really not correct, or we're not in possession of all the facts. So I hope that was helpful, David, and all our other listeners. I hope that from now on you're going to be aware of how you communicate, of your body language, of your facial expressions and your eyes. Our eyes are the window to the soul. And that you are going to choose your words with a lot more care and make sure that, one, I'm clear about what I want to get across, and two, that I'm clear that you are in a position to understand that. And I'm going to listen to when somebody speaks to me. I'm going to be curious about what they are saying, and I'm going to be open to new perspectives and new ideas. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope that was useful. As always, please feel free to contact me if you would like more information or perhaps more guidance on a specific situation you are battling with. But please keep the requests going, keep them coming in. And as I said, if you guys are interested in learning a bit more about negotiation skills, it would, as always, be my pleasure and privilege to share some tips with you. Enjoy the rest of the day, stay safe, and enjoy the upcoming weekend.
The radio station you can't live without. This is your radio.
This is South Coast Radio.